are off. I will introduce you the executive members and officers supporting the meeting. Please be advised that the meeting is currently being webcast. So, it is the last session of clapping for the NHS tonight, and I don't propose to stop the executive meeting for clapping the NHS, but as it would disrupt the flow of the meeting. But I would say that the council values the work of the NHS and hugely, so it's not an act of disrespect. I would like just a moment to remember those who have sadly died and suffered during this pandemic. Okay, thank you. Please, if you're not speaking, turn off your camera and turn it on when speaking. Please, Guy. Please, Diane. Please, Pauline. Any apologies for absence?
Chairman, there are no apologies.
Thank you. I have the minutes of the meeting of the 22nd of April. Are there any amendments to it?
No.
You can put up your hands if there's any amendments. No. So can I take those as read? Can I have a proposer and a seconder?
Happy to propose.
Happy to second, John.
Lovely, thank you. Declarations of interest.
Mr. Chairman, I have to declare a prejudicial interest in item 122 and will be leaving the meeting while it's being considered.
Thank you.
And me also, John, exactly the same reason. Thank
you. We have a lot of questions tonight, and I'm going to try to get through them all. It's the first real opportunity to people to hold the executive to account. So can I start with Simon Cooper's? Is Simon Cooper there?
Hello, yes. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
I'm afraid I don't have a camera on this device, so unfortunately you won't be able to see me, but I'll press ahead anyway. So the question is, following the fatal accidents at my home in January and the one 3 years prior to that, and the other 5 serious accidents outside my property in the last 7 years, please can the council provide a thorough update as to the progress being made, and please be very specific in your answer, and what timescales are being followed to resolve this matter. Please also include the data gleaned from the speed surveys conducted in March, and I'm happy for the data to be anonymised to protect the innocent.
Thank you, Mr. Cooper. The council notes your continued interest in the progress being made with regard to traffic safety in Mortimer Road, Graiseley. And I can confirm that despite current public health demands we are coping with, the council has met all of the commitments made to you in the previous executive responses. And this has been directly communicated to you in email communications by officers. In particular, traffic speed surveys have been concluded at 4 locations, as agreed with the Thames Valley Police, and as advised to you by officers at a meeting on site. The data from these surveys have been analysed, and results confirm the conditions remain much as they were prior to the fatal collision, with traffic speeds remaining broadly compliant with the speed limit. A copy of the survey data has also been provided to you in response to a Freedom of Information request that you made, and the same data has also been passed to the police to assist in their undertaking of traffic management and fatal collision investigations, which, as you are aware, have yet to be concluded. The council may not see the outcome of these investigations until reports are passed to the coroner, and it will be therefore inappropriate for it to take any specific action with regard to infrastructure improvement until the outcome of any inquest is known, along with any specific requirements for action that the coroner might impose upon the council in its role as the highway authority. Notwithstanding this, you have been informed of the council's investigation of the potential for average speed enforcement cameras at appropriate locations along Mortimer Road, which is now concluded, and I can advise you that we will be seeking both the support of the police and the local community through a formal public consultation process once the outcome of the coroner's inquest is known. The council's programmed resurfacing work for Mortimer Road is now rescheduled to be undertaken in June, following which road markings will be reinstated, and this will reinforce the traffic safety measures already in place. I would take this opportunity once again to acknowledge your continued anxiety and extend every sympathy and respect with the current circumstances. Members are just as keen to see the conclusion of this phase of the investigation as quickly as they are, in order that the next phase can move forward. But until that is possible, we must patiently await the police and coroner's reports. Question, and your mic's off at the moment.
Thank you very much for the response, John. No, I don't have any supplementaries. Thank you.
And I apologise for that glitch, whatever that was.
No worries. Thanks very much.
Pleasure. Darryl Campbell.
Hi there. Thanks for your time. So my question is for the Executive Member for Highways and Transport. It was with great delight that I met the government's recent announcement that English authorities will receive advanced funding for walking and cycling to the tune of 250 million. How does the council plan to spend this money?
Hello, Mr. Campbell. Thank you very much for your question. Yeah, we were pleased to. We're currently considering options for using the funding. We've been in regular contact with the DFT and they've told us we should know what our allocation is likely to be very shortly. We anticipate it's going to be a lump sum based on fixed criteria rather than a bidding process, but we don't actually know how much money we've got yet. There's no time for a competitive process to take place. Officers have been discussing a number of plans as well as considering ideas put forward from the public, businesses and elected members. And once we know the level of funding available, we'll be able to determine what we can achieve. As you know, we've got an excellent active modes of sustainable transport team called My Journey, who were recently awarded local authority SGO Host School Partner of the Year and the 2020 National Bikeability Awards, beating Manchester and Lincolnshire County Councils, who were joint runners-up. We want to continue this excellent track record and continue to provide the skills needed, as well as the facilities such as greenways and London Road Cycle Route currently under construction. I'm sure we'll be able to utilise this funding to make a difference in the short term, but I also hope there'll be a legacy. So what we'd like to do is do something that improves cycling now and also improves it in the future. I'd be interested in your ideas, actually.
Okay, thank you.
Sam Turvey, is he here? Mr. Turvey? No.
John, you didn't allow Darryl to ask a supplementary? I don't know if you wanted to.
That's true. I apologise, Mr. Campbell. Please.
That's quite all right. I think that's all right for now. Thank you. Thanks for your response.
Thanks.
I do apologise. It's getting used to this new scheme of things. I take it Sam Turvey is not here, and Pauline was right to upbraid me for not asking the supplementary, and I should have also introduced whoever's here. The full executive are here, consisting of myself as the leader and the executive members who are John Kaiser, who's the deputy leader and executive member for finance and housing, Harry Bath, environment and leisure, Ulla Corinne Clark, children's services, Charlotte Haytham-Taylor, regeneration, Pauline Jorgensen, highways and transport, Charles Margetts, health, wellbeing and adult services, Stuart Monroe, business and economic development, Gregor Murray, climate emergency and resident services, and Wayne Smith, planning and enforcement. Also, we're being supported by various officers. Susan Parsonage, who is the Chief Executive of the Borough Council, Graham Ebers, who's a Deputy Chief Executive and Executive Member for Finance, and Anne Hunter, who's Democratic Services, and Andrew Moulton, who's responsible for everything, Democratic Services and such like. So, moving on, Imogen, please. You have a question to John Kaiser.
I do indeed. My question is, can you see me all? Everybody see me? I think you can. Yeah.
Magnificently, magnificently. You are in the same room as John.
Yeah, same room as John.
I'm reversed, I think, but never mind. let's move on. Right.
Looking at each other.
Okay. We realise that council finances are being severely affected by the coronavirus crisis. Sorry. Please, can you detail what effects this will have on Woking Borough Council's capital projects, and will any works be delayed or affected?
Okay, thank you for the question, Imogen. I mean, it's likely there's going to be some delays in the capital projects within the programme, as the COVID-19 pandemic will undoubtedly affect the supply chain for the council's various contractors. This also goes the same for the builders and the providers of some of the S106 money. However, early signs are that the economy is starting to move again, and the construction industry is returning to work in accordance with the guidance on social distancing and following the key messages of stay alert and control the virus and save lives. The council senior leadership are currently reviewing the capital programme with a view to considering any impact of COVID-19 on resourcing and potential changes to the service requirements. Proposed changes to the capital programme will be reported back to the executive if there are any. Yes. Do you have a supplementary?
Sure. Do you anticipate any other services of the? Obviously, I mean, we've seen John Housel's statements on the front of the Woking paper this week, where obviously we know that the council finances are going to be affected. I'd like to sort of know some idea of where you're going to try and recoup some of the money that we obviously need to scrape back from the COVID crisis.
Well, the simple answer to that is, Imogen, we don't know the extent of the issue. Obviously, we can't, if we do have a problem recovering SEAL and S106 from developers, and there's no saying that we will. If we do, it may be a deferral, which will mean that we will have to fund that somewhat longer. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on where you're standing, we decide to forward fund as much as we possibly can. So roads and that sort of thing, we'd like to try and get those in before the development. Of course, that means we have to borrow that money, albeit at decent rates, until we get the payment from the developers. Now, if we find ourselves in a situation, there may be some of the nice to do things that we've got in our capital programme, which enhances the ambience and the culture of the borough, we may have to seriously think hard about. I would hope that we don't stop anything. We may just find ourselves in a situation where we have to delay some of the stuff in the programme.
Okay, thank you.
Angus.
Good evening, Chairman. My question is to you, and please could you let me know the status of our local plan?
Indeed. As you know, the core strategy and local plan, the managing and development delivery local plan, alongside the joint minerals and waste focused local plans, form the statutory development plan for the borough. Planning law requires that planning applications are determined in accordance with the development plan, unless material considerations indicate otherwise. We need a up-to-date and fully approved local plan to ensure that we have a defence against speculative development. At the moment, our position is that we do not know what the COVID crisis will have done to our 5-year land supply. Both the core strategy and MDD are working to manage development in ways which meet the objectives of the government's national planning policy framework. They are therefore broadly up to date. Work continues on preparing new local plans. When completed, the local plan update will replace both the core strategy and MDD, and the joint central and East Berkshire Minerals and Waste local plan will replace the current joint minerals and waste plans. The NPPF confirms that merging plans are a material consideration, and that weight may be given to relevant policies according to the stage of preparation of the emerging plan. The extent to which there are unresolved objections to relevant policies, the degree of consistency of the relevant policies in the emerging plan to the NPPF. As you know, we prepared a local plan update consultation. Responses were received from residents and other interested parties. The update was contingent upon certain paradigms. The existing economic environment, the development of Graiseley would be infrastructure-led with a $250 million HIF bid for infrastructure, no adverse consequences from the review of the AWE Emergency Plan Action Zone. The Emergency Plan Action Zone has been extended well into our borough and encompasses what was included in the plan as the Graiseley settlement. Notwithstanding Homes for England working with us for some considerable time and the government's declaration of a garden settlement at Graiseley, the HIF bid failed. More importantly, however, the coronavirus emergency has completely changed the economic environment. Because of the replies received and the changes in the paradigms, we shall need to review our plan update and hope to be in a condition to publish a revised plan as soon as possible. Do you have a supplementary, Angus?
Thank you for that detailed update of where we are, Mr. Chairman. I think I was asking about really what the status of that local plan update is. I think you've mainly covered it, but perhaps just to say what we should be seeing next.
Well, there's a lot of work been going on in the council as to what we should do given the response to the consultation, and we shall publish a revised plan as soon as possible. We need to do so because we've already had threatening noises from speculative developers, and I understand there's several applications being considered. So we need to put our defences up, and the only absolute defence against speculative development is an up-to-date and fully approved local plan.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angus. Ulla Corinne, a question for Charles Margetts.
No, it's for you. The question is for you. John?
But I've asked him to answer it.
Okay. Do you feel that the care homes in the borough have done all they can to limit the spread of the coronavirus? And is our statistical base now solid?
Okay, thank you for your question. Our care homes have worked tirelessly through this extremely difficult time to help support their residents. I'd like to voice my thanks to all of them for this. Care homes in Wokingham are usually run by private or voluntary sector service providers. Private care homes are run for profit by private organisations and individuals. Voluntary care homes are not for profit and run by registered charities, sometimes religious organisations and housing associations. There are 53 CQC registered care home settings within Wokingham. This is a broad definition and includes many different services: older people's care homes, residential nursing and learning disability. Wokingham Borough Council has taken groundbreaking action to help protect its care homes during the COVID-19 crisis. Last month, the Borough Council took the unprecedented decision to go against national government guidelines by refusing to take patients discharged from hospital into care homes unless it was certain that they did not have the coronavirus. At the same time, the council, with its partners in the health service, set up a task force of specialists to work with care homes to make sure they were ready to cope with patients who had the virus and that their infection control procedures were at the highest standard. The task force has now worked with 14 care homes in our borough to make sure they can start to take hospital discharges again. As with all care homes in the country, those in Wokingham have been coping with a very difficult situation. People have died of COVID-19 in our homes, and our thoughts are with them, their loved ones, and the staff and the people who care for them. In the first period of the pandemic, we became very concerned that the situation in care homes was worsening. So we lobbied our MPs and the local resilience forum for increased testing of those discharged from hospital, for those in homes, the staff, and for improved supplies of PPE. We increased our support to local care homes, providing emergency supplies of PPE and forming the task force, which I mentioned before. Despite this lobbying, government guidelines continued to allow the discharge of patients, which is why we took the decision to stop discharge unless the patient has tested negative, is without symptoms, or our task force was certain the care home could cope with positive cases. We've now, as I said, visited 14 care homes and are at a place where we can take people safely into these homes. I'd like to personally thank all the care home staff and management for the immense effort they put in to keep people supported in this most difficult situations. We've supported care homes in many other ways. We've offered an improved funding deal for care homes who we contract to, with the ability to get additional temporary funding. We've offered help with the supply of PPE. 231,000 pieces of PPE have been supplied to our care homes. We've offered regular advice of guidance. We've been ringing their management and staff regularly to provide support. Over 300 calls to registered care homes. We've tested staff with symptoms, more than 250 so far, plus others who have self-referred themselves. And with the offer of access to staff in an emergency, an infection control hotline has been established.
Thank you very much.
Do you have a supplementary, Lord Green?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Guy, your question to Ulrikrin.
Thank you, John. My question is, how has Children's Services managed to continue to deliver services in these challenging times, especially in regards to our most vulnerable families?
In response to COVID-19, Children's Social Care has adopted and amended how we deliver our services to ensure that both children and workers are safe and the risks are mitigated. Our changes are based on the government's advice and guidance, such as social distancing, good hygiene, and not undertaking unnecessary journeys. The changes to our practice and service delivery could be summarized as risk assessments and mitigation of risks, visiting the families we are most worried about, and having the correct protective equipment when necessary, such as masks and gloves, adapting our offer and supporting families differently, depending on their needs. And of course, we now have digital technology, which have supported us in our engagement with families. And also, of course, remote working. We are focused on keeping children safe and keeping our staff safe, as well as our statutory duties. And this is, as you can imagine, a delicate balancing act. Most workers are now working from home, and this has been possible because of the new IT equipment we have. We have also changed the way we do recording so that we accurately capture how our visits are taking place, if it was by phone, video call, or face-to-face. All child protection visits in borough are ongoing and are face-to-face using all safety precautions as required. Child protection conferences and looked after reviews are taking place remotely via conference calls. All looked after children cases have been reviewed and where possible, visit timeframes amended in line with the statutory requirements of each case. And the availability of new apps and software has supported the use of video calling to communicate with children regularly. In addition to this, the Bridges Resource Centre is continuing to offer a residential respite service, although it has been slightly reduced. All court applications for public law, where we need to protect the child, and youth justice are being completed remotely via video link. The number of contacts made to our front door, such as duty, triage and assessment, has reduced, and we're using some of the capacity created to support pressures and gaps in other teams and assist with visits. Finally, we are meeting weekly with the Berkshire West Safeguarding Children Partnership, which includes health and police, to identify and address any issues or themes as they arise. Did you have a supplementary?
Yes, Ulla Corinne, thank you very much. It sounds like you're doing work. One question, you mentioned a lot of technology. One part I didn't catch you speaking about there is in regards to schooling. So how is the virtual school been performing in this time period within the children in their cohort?
Well, students are provided with work packages and or inline learning materials. And in addition, our looked after children, as you know, we are all in locus parentis as counsellors, corporate parents. We, for them, have provided online encyclopedia, and they have also one-to-one tutoring.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Graham?
Yes, my question is to leader, please. Whilst there has been much to congratulate the officers and participating members for their dedication and action during the COVID emergency, it has invoked much change in priorities, operations and outcomes. Can the leader please outline what the council has done well, not done well, and what is within and outside the council's control as part of the answer? Could the leader outline the lessons that have been learnt for the future operations of the council?
Certainly. It is almost 3 months to the day that I was first notified of a COVID case in Woking Borough. It has been a long 3 months. The chief executive, directors and the members of the executive have been magnificent. All our officers have been exemplary during this period, prepared to turn their hands to anything. The voluntary sector has worked with our officers to achieve the unachievable, and I'm hugely grateful to both. Residents have volunteered in huge numbers and largely espoused the conditions which have been forced upon them. There have been innumerable local volunteer groups supporting each other. Councillors of all parties have contributed massively to our efforts and suspended political activities, though I note they're creeping back. A big thank you to you all. The impact of COVID-19 on council services has been very profound. It has affected all the aspects of the Borough Council and the Borough. We have focused on the very immediate matters, supporting care homes, working with our valuable partners on our community response. We have sought to deliver our universal services in the same way as far as possible. We have redeployed staff extensively throughout the organisation to ensure we have staff in the right places and flexible arrangements to ensure we can easily change should that be required. My executive colleagues will or have covered in more detail our actions regarding care homes, our community response and children's services. My focus will be on our universal services and lessons learned. We have done all that we can to keep those services going that most affect, if not all, our residents. For example, waste collection and recycling and highways maintenance. We've not only achieved this in most services, we have also escalated improvement and repair work to the borough's highways, taking advantage of the opportunity of far fewer cars on the network. This has included hard-to-do works, including Showcase Roundabout. Work started on the programme of 17 accelerated carriageway resurfacing schemes on 6th of April 2020 and should be completed by mid-June. At the same time, we quickly suspended civil parking enforcement. We decided to continue to collect garden waste, and as a result, whilst the RE3 partnership were forced to close the household waste recycling centres, which have now been reopened, we have not seen exceptional increases in fly tipping that have been reported elsewhere in the country. Our localities enforcement team have continued working and dealing with a full range of issues. We've kept our country parks open, unlike our neighbours, allowing residents to enjoy open space, and whilst we've had to close the car parks for the early weeks of the emergency, we've now reopened them and provided additional staff resources to ensure that social distancing is maintained. Despite most of our staff working from home, we've managed to maintain a full frontline service to residents contacting the borough through our customer delivery service, with staff dealing with online and telephone requests. We are largely paperless and can access the information we need. We have only stopped those services such as weddings, citizens' ceremonies and birth registrations where a government requested us to do so. We acted fast to provide safety emergency accommodation for homeless, household, rough sleepers, children in care, repatriated residents, as well as temporary accommodation for key workers. We have liaised with local bus operators to ensure that the much reduced levels of service still meet the essential needs of residents and key workers. Whilst we've had to close our libraries in line with government restrictions, we've expanded and promoted our range of online services to include electronic books and magazines, added to free music streaming and a whole series of online virtual events. A large proportion of the library staff were rapidly redeployed to provide additional assistance to the most vulnerable. Using staff redeployed for services which have, let me turn the feedback off. This has meant that funding crucial for their survival has been allocated quickly and efficiently. Lessons learned for the future operations. Fundamentally, we've learned that our resilience and business continuity plans are sound and have worked well. The council's investment in digital technology to enable our staff work from home proved its worth beyond doubt. We've also learned that we are able to flex and adapt fast, and that our vital relationships with key contractors, such as our waste and highways contractors, are strong and have enabled us to keep delivering when some other authorities have struggled or stopped. Our experience in social distancing will be built into all future arrangements, including reception points and libraries when they reopen. We hope to continue to build on and expand our range of online and telephone assisted services and continue to offer organised telephone and video appointments going forward for the convenience of our residents and customers. In the future, we will develop our relationship with local businesses further, particularly regarding promoting and accessing grants and assisting with health, and look to see how we can build on any benefits, opportunities around climate emergency. Similarly, the fantastic work that we have built with the voluntary and community sector will be the foundations of our future relationship. At the same time, because our contact with vulnerable people in the borough has been extensive, using many extra staff, we now know much about the community, which can be fed into our future thinking about service provision. As we are still very much in the midst of our response, we're not in a position to have identified all the lessons. We will do this in the coming weeks and months. Do you have a supplementary, Graham? I've turned you off, by the way. You need to turn you off.
I turn myself on, as I frequently do. Thank you. Thank you for that answer, which covers a great breadth of work done by the council. And it is, as you say, still early days and very much work in progress to make change. But as unlocking and understanding the new norm evolves, it will be easy to slip back into the old ways and lose momentum in making learnt improvements for all Wokingham Borough's residents. What do you think we should be putting in place to avoid any such slippage?
This administration has been in post for just 12 months. A key ambition was to build morale within the council staff and create a can-do attitude where staff are encouraged to make decisions and take risks, learn from mistakes and be open about them. Our response to coronavirus has been just that. Officers at all levels took decisions quickly and courageously. They did and are continuing to do a magnificent job. Another key ambition was to focus on serving our residents. I'm sure that everybody will agree that the borough was exemplary. We will not go back to our old ways. We will build on this to create a council where officers are proud to serve our residents, who in turn are proud of their borough council. I'm pleased to announce that we've created new posts within the Directorate, Keeley Clements, to focus on our resident services and localities, Keeley started this week. Another key ambition was to create a new environment to work with our voluntary sector partners. And so during the next few months, we will be working hard as our current level of support diminishes to ensure that the cooperation we've achieved continues. But it does not end there. We've been working well with our excellent GPs throughout the borough and NHS partners with whom we wish to extend this relationship. Lastly, but not least, we need to build upon the excellent relationship we've enjoyed with the police and other blue light services. Thank you, Graham. Diane. Diane? Diane?
I'll turn myself on. Have you got me now?
Yes. You can turn your.
How's that?
Yeah, yeah. Go on then.
My question is to Charles Margetts, and I would like to him to give me an update on the Wokingham community response to the COVID-19 situation.
Thank you, Diane. Well, I can confidently say I've been amazed and humbled by the speed and quality of the response the council and its community partners have delivered at this difficult time. It's a real credit to Wokingham that we've been able to support our vulnerable so well, and I'd like to thank every single person who's been involved. The Wokingham Borough Community Response provides a single point of contact for residents to access support during the COVID pandemic. Citizens Advice Wokingham provides a one front door service for residents. Wokingham Borough Council staff and Citizens Advice staff and volunteers take phone calls, respond to emails requesting support. They work together to assess residents' needs, provide advice and get people support from the right scheme, directing them to services such as the Link Visiting Scheme, Talking Buddies programme for people feeling isolated and lonely, the Wokingham Food Bank for those struggling to access food, Wokingham Volunteer Centre have supported collecting and delivering pharmacy prescriptions as well as helping track down other volunteers. First Days Children's Charity have supported the Food Hub and delivering food parcels across the borough. Wokingham Volunteer Centre and the Link have supported the recruitment of 600 additional volunteers. Age UK have expanded their home from hospital service, provide additional support. Now, to give you the latest up-to-date figures, because obviously the figures which are in the press pack are going to be 2 weeks out of date. So far, we've helped 1,922 households. We've delivered nearly 3,700 food parcels to 872 households. We've done 677 people aged 70 or plus have received food parcels. 438 households have received regular deliveries. We've dealt with 744 prescription referrals. We've been calling almost 7,500 people basically on a regular basis to check that they're okay, and those people who need welfare support, and 45 people supported from home on the Home to Hospital scheme. So, I mean, I can't really, you find out what a community is all about basically when it's put in an issue like this. And I know from comments I've had from other people that, outside of this borough, that what we have here is something we should all be very proud of.
Thank you, Charles. Thank you, Charles. And I'd like to echo your thanks to all those amazing organisations and individuals that have gone out there and helped in this very difficult situation. While the virus situation continues, are there plans to going forward as to how we can deal with this?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We've been working on a plan for probably the last month now in conjunction with our voluntary sector partners to extend this support towards the end of the year. because the reality is that some people are going to need it. Trying to encourage people where possible to seek other routes, but providing support for those who cannot find it anywhere else, because we've done the hard part and we're not going to let these people down now. And aside from that, just before COVID, in the pre-COVID days, we'd spend a lot of time trying to work with the voluntary sector to come to work towards a plan where we could work together more effectively going forwards. Now, system has shown, this scheme basically has shown how well we can work together with when we have a common purpose at heart. So discussions are going on longer term about how to button the voluntary sector in wherever possible to our voluntary care strategy, and to try and continue this level of cooperation going forwards.
You're muted, John.
Abdul's not here, so he'll have to have a written response from Charles. Rochelle.
I asked the question standing in my name.
No. Please read it out, because people don't know what the question is.
Okay, I have to find the question right now. I was asking about the
I'll read it
park
out.
and when the Denton car park was opened. Obviously, it's open now, but what are we doing about social distancing in Denton?
I'll give you your question. How will you maintain social distancing with probable increased patronage if we reopen the car parks at country parks? To Councillor Perry Bath, we've actually reopened the car parks, country parks. So far away, Perry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for your question, Rochelle. As you know, the car parks have been open now for a good number of days, and you asked specifically about the distancing measures. The council actually, we took a full risk assessment in advance of reopening the car parks at the country parks, and these have focused mainly on the social distancing to protect the safety of our residents and our staff. Measures to secure this include only a partial opening of all the car parks at our main sites to keep visitor numbers to a manageable level, and a combination of social distancing marshals patrolling these parks, give way signages at pinch points, keep left posters and bridges and one-way routes on narrow paths and broad walks. Where social distancing can't be maintained, facilities such as the park toilets will remain closed. We feel confident that these measures will be sufficient to maintain social distancing, but we have to rely on our residents to ensure that they adhere to the guidelines when they visit the parks to enable the car parks to remain open. And I must say and admit that our residents have behaved very responsibly to all this response, and this will be kept under constant review to ensure that safety of staff and residents is maintained at all times, and contingencies are in place to work with the police, highways and our parking partner, NSL, as and when required. And can I take this opportunity to thank all our officers and our staff for ensuring the safety of our residents.
Have you got a supplementary, Rochelle? Hello, Rochelle? Rochelle, come in.
Sorry, yes. Yes, I do have a supplemental. If you haven't been to Denton lately, you will realize that people are not doing social distancing properly. They do not seem to be doing that. I have not seen anybody actually telling people to split up. There are lots of people having picnics together, and unless they're have some very interesting family groups, they seem to be teenagers walking together, hand in hand, things like this. And I don't think they're actually married to each other or living with each other. If they are, it's a little bit of a strange situation. So what are we actually doing for this?
Well, I visited the park myself, and I also keep in constant touch with the staff and the management there. They have reported no misbehaving of our residents, and I'm confident, and I'm really pleased that everybody's behaving. Like you say, if you see couples holding hands, we don't know whether they're married or not, whether they're living together. Well,
at 16, I don't think they're married.
Sorry?
At 16, I doubt they're married. Besides which, I walk in Denton Pastures every day with my dog, and I've seen a lot of people not doing that. So it would be nice to have more of the people actually telling people, saying, please, can you separate a little bit and things like that.
Well, our staff have been very, very good at that. And if they see anything that's untowards, they do take action. And we have additional marshals on site on busy days, and social distancing is being practiced and respected as far as I'm concerned. But I do take note of what you say, Rochelle, and I will raise it with the management at Denton Pastures to make sure that we do respect all this.
Thank you. Can I just remind everybody to keep their cameras off unless they're asking a question or answering a question. There's a few people floating in to the screen, which will go on YouTube, who have inadvertently turned their cameras on, and I'm sure they didn't really want to be on YouTube. Andrew, far away.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is for the Executive Member for Children's Services. I've heard some very positive feedback from parents about the help provided by schools in our borough to support continued studies during the lockdown. However, during lockdown, inevitably, for multiple reasons, potentially quite large numbers of pupils will have fallen behind their peers in terms of learning. In some cases, this gap is likely to be significant, with the potential for a long-term negative impact in terms of learning and self-confidence. Is WBC planning to offer any targeted support to schools that could help pupils who have fallen behind their peers during lockdown to quickly catch up again? Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's important to remember that the schools have been open for key workers' children and for vulnerable children. And for those children studying at home, our officers have worked very closely with the schools, sharing online resources for home learning. Our officers are currently working with schools through a range of meetings and round table discussions, how we can help to support them. And initial advice, as you know, is that the schools should open slowly and in a controlled way, starting with reception year 1 and year 6. Now this depends on the 5 tests being met to reduce the national alert level to 3, to provide a greater focus on pastoral support that enables pupils to re-engage with the process of class-based learning. This means that the teachers will have time to assess the level of the impact that home learning have had on each individual pupil, which by its very nature will be different depending on the child's circumstances. And they will then have to adapt the learning curriculum so that the children can get back to where they were before the lockdown happened. Where there is a need for specific targeted responses to particular schools or individual students, Children's Services will be working again with the schools and other services to help the heads and teachers to identify the best way to meet the individual child's needs.
I have a supplementary, Andrew.
Not a question, but I would like to say that I and many parents and pupils are very grateful for this much needed support. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we have Sarah Kerr and Ulrikarin. Far away, Sarah.
Thank you. Yes, for you again, Ila Karin. Like many parents right now, I'm feeling quite nervous about the prospect of sending my young children back to school. Socially distancing children is not easy. Many of us know from experience how easy it is for various illnesses to get transmitted. Many parents will not feel confident yet that the school environment is safe for them, their family and school staff. How is WBC planning to approach this issue?
Well, firstly, I'd like to say that every school will do a risk assessment and they will decide whether they are ready to open or not. As you are aware, no school is being forced to open. It's up to the individual school to decide if they are going to open and how they are going to arrange the schooling for the individual students. Children's services are in daily contact with the head teachers and are working with them on developing a response to ensure that the emerging guidance is implemented in advance of opening the school. The latest scientific advice from government is that children of all ages have less severe symptoms than adults if they should contract the virus. And there is a great deal of confidence that younger children are less likely to become unwell if infected with the virus. However, it is up to the parents if they want to send their children back to school or not. And I think that is the correct way of doing it. If a parent is worried and don't feel confident, they can keep their children at home. We will be working with schools to manage limited attendance, and we will create small teaching groups of not more than 15 students so that they can maintain strict social distancing. And that means that we will have, for example, staggered drop-off and pick-up, lunch and break times will be different, so the children in different teaching groups will not mix. We'll also be supporting schools to implement additional protective measures. We'll be helping them with the supply of cleaning materials and protective equipment if necessary. And we are also closely with public health to wider community on arrangements at any time.
Right, Ulrikrin, you're best off turning your camera off because the bandwidth is not good. Did you hear that reply?
I didn't hear all of it. I heard a lot about whether it's safe or not for children to go back, and my concern isn't just about the virus, it's also about the mental health of our children. But what I specifically didn't catch anything of was how families who choose not to send their children back to school, what support is going to be there. And I appreciate a lot of that comes from the schools, but I'm assuming that the council is going to be supporting schools to not only look after and teach the children that are going back into school, but providing support to those families that have chosen to stay at home as well. I couldn't hear any of that, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, Corinne, can you come on back or not? No? Let me try and reply, and then we can give a reply in writing if necessary.
Say a written reply, probably due to the broadband issues.
Nothing we can do about that, unfortunately. That's life. But the Woking Borough Council policy on schools is that we have very competent teachers, we have very competent governors, and our role is to support them in doing their job. We are not going to encourage or penalise parents for putting their children in school, and we will support them as well. So in the context of what we can do, we will support the schools in the children being at school or the children not being in school. And we have a massive job which is identifying the children who may or may not be falling behind, to bring them up to scratch. Is that a reply to your question, Sarah?
Sort of, but I'm pretty sure I'm out of supplementaries.
Thank you. Tahir. John Kaiser.
Yeah, good evening.
May I say it's a magnificent tie.
Thank you very much. It goes with everything, John.
Everything.
My question is for the Executive Member for Finance and Housing. Unfortunately, the proposed revenue outturn for 2019-20 will be affected due to the current pandemic. The Council has had time to assess the impact from COVID-19 on the revenue outturn for 2019 and 20. Consequently, what is the forecast and possible variance from the original outturn for 2019-20?
Thank you, Tahir. I mean, the 2019-20 outturn report has presented already in the accounts for the impact on the council, accounts for the COVID-19 pandemic for the financial year. The direct costs in 1920 were £104,000, but these were offset by the first tranche of government funding from the government, which was received before the year end. Indirect costs were also absorbed by the services, as these were minimal because we were very early into it, and mainly in the last week of March. And these figures are also in the outturn figures already, which I will be reporting on tonight. The main impact on the council will be in the current financial year, which is 2021. The grant funding, less that used in the 1920, has been carried forward into the current year. Even with this and the second allocation from central government, the council will still face pressure on its 2021 budgets as a result of the response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Although our financial management arrangements remain sound, we have unprecedented challenges as a result of this crisis, and therefore we must continue to ensure our resources are targeted at those most in need in the community.
Do you have a supplementary, Tahir?
Yeah, I think it's been partly answered, but I will kind of just highlight it again. It's just really looking at the forecast for 2021, really, and the likely variance against budget. Is there anything to be really cautious about there? That you may foresee now? I know it's a bit early.
Yeah, we feel we're on top of the numbers, Tahir, and they're not very appetizing when you see how much money that we're spending and to support residents, to support care homes. But what we are doing, we work on a regular basis with the leaders of the other parties, your leader as well, and we report on the financials on a weekly basis. And once we get to the first outturn of this year, we will hopefully be in a position which we will be able to give a clearer picture as to what it's going to look like going forward.
Thank you, John. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Tahir. Pauline Hellier-Simons, Parry Bath. You're muted, Pauline.
I'm not muted now. I pressed the button.
You're wonderful. Yeah. Parry.
Question to Parry Bath. Parry, can you tell me how Wokingham Borough Council has managed to maintain 100% waste collection when so many others did not?
Parry?
Yeah, I'm here, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for that question, Pauline. That's a very important question. In fact, this has been a real testament to the strength of our partnership working. The Wokingham Borough Council waste collection service is delivered by, as you know, Veolia, who have worked with the council throughout the crisis in an adaptable, flexible and pragmatic way to ensure that the best possible service is delivered to our residents, whilst following government guidelines to ensure the safety of the workforce and the public. A range of alternative operational practices have been implemented by Veolia to reduce staff contact and secure social distancing at the same time. personal protective equipment and testing have been made available to Veolia staff. Where staff have self-isolated, additional agency staff have been employed to maintain that 100% collection within the borough that you mentioned. I would like to thank Veolia for their magnificent efforts, which epitomises our partnership, working with them since 2012. I would also like to thank our customer delivery team and the community transport unit who worked together to continue the deliveries of blue bags and garden waste sacks to residents following the closure of the council's libraries and community hubs. We continue to do our utmost to support our service, and we're aware of how much residents appreciate the service being provided during these very difficult times. We have had quite a lot of positive feedback from many residents appreciating our continued service to maintain the 100% waste collection, and long may that continue.
Thank you. Do you have a supplementary, Pauline?
Yes, just a short one. Harry, please, will you ensure that the frontline workers know how much we councillors and residents appreciate what they're doing?
I will do, Pauline. I think I share your support there, and we will do all our best to pass our thanks and our support to our contractors and their staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, and that concludes a marathon of questions. The next item on the agenda is the consideration of the report from the overview scrutiny report for a state infrastructure review. And it's customary to invite the chairman, Andy Croy, to speak to this item.
Hello.
Were you aware?
Thank you. I was aware I was needed at the meeting. I wasn't aware I had to give a speech, but
no, you're speaking to the report. You don't have to give a speech.
Okay. Shall I go through it? It's only about 60 or 70 pages, but perhaps what I should do is summarise. There's a feeling from I think all members who knock on residents' doors on a regular basis will have come across occasions where the adoption of new estate infrastructure, be that highways or open spaces, has not proceeded as the residents would like, and it often causes quite a lot of distress. So the purpose of the Task and Finish group was to look at the issues surrounding adoption and to see if we could make recommendations to the council which would allow for a smoother and more transparent adoption process. The aim, I think, is so that the borough gets better quality infrastructure, and perhaps more importantly, so that residents have a smoother introduction to living in the borough, and that they have higher quality highways and open spaces more quickly in their term or in their new house. That's all I want to say. I mean, the report's quite thorough. You're still on mute, John. John, you're still on mute, I'm afraid.
Thank you. The council, there's some recommendations, section 2 of the report. The recommendations are: the council considers measures to increase public awareness about the adoption of new estate infrastructure. The council considers measures to improve and expand the current interactive maps on the website. The council considers measures to provide more regular briefings for town and parish councils. The WC officers provide regular updates to parish liaison forum. The council considers the resources available for the managing the adoption process in non-SDL. Council reviews the process of developing and agreeing Section 106 agreements relating to the adoption of open space. The officers consider potential improvements to secure earlier engagement as the council works with developers to build on the proactive work of officers, and that the residents and the town and parish councils who respond to the call for evidence receive feedback, that the council consider measures to ensure the recruitment and retention of key staff working on the adoption process, the WBC members receive annual training on the adoption process, and an annual update of the adoption process be submitted to the overview and scrutiny management committee. So there's a series of recommendations. I think the recommendations are mainly to you, Wayne, to consider.
Some of them are highways, I think, John.
Yeah.
John, I think if I can add that, I think there's a series of officer responses to the recommendations as well.
So I think the way to take this on is for the two executive members to come back to you. Yes. With.
I think it would be good if the executive considered the officers' responses, because I think the officers haven't just accepted the responses wholesale. There are some where they've said, yes, this is good, we can do this. Yes, so I think the recommendation is for the executive to, I think, consider the officers' responses to the report, and that would be the basis for going forward, rather than executive members having to consider the whole report when the officers have already done that for them.
Certainly, I've already been through the responses from my officers and I'm happy with them.
Wayne, have you had the opportunity?
No, it's Parry, by the way, John, unless I've changed my name. So, yeah, I'm happy with the recommendations as well. So, Pauline and I wish to ask the executive to approve the officers' responses contained in the report, please.
Okay. Can I
add to that? Because it did come to the main overview and scrutiny management committee, who considered it. I must say that my personal view was that it was an extremely balanced report with a lot of very good officer input. I made a few suggestions, some of which already take place, a lot of which were taken on board, and a few of which we don't have the control to do anyway. So I'm very happy to recommend all of the recommendations in this report and hope the executive will accept it.
Any other questions from any other member of the executive? No? Can I take voting like I did at the last executive meeting, assume that everybody's in favour unless they express being against? Is there anybody against? Anybody abstaining? Then let's carry it. Thank you very much, Andy. Well done. John.
Thank you. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a piece of quarterly housekeeping. Basically, what we do is we do an outturn report. This is the final one for the year. And although the report actually shows a variance of just under £500,000, this represents a significant improvement on the position forecast in the mid-year point, which was closer to £1 million. The movement is due to continued work to improve improvement boards in both adults and children's services. We've managed to achieve this even though there was an overspend in children's services of £2 million. So praise to the officers for doing that. I mean, the report really is just to allow the executive to note and consider the financial outturn for 2019-20 for the council's net revenue expenditure, its general fund balances and housing revenue account. We had a budget which was 124.3 million, and we spent 124.7 million, which is less than 1/3%. So I think we will agree that that's a pretty good turnout. I mean, the details of the outturn are actually in the body of the report. Following the year-end closing process, the council and general fund balances were standing at 9.1 million, which has improved by 0.3 million from last year, and also represent a prudent level above the CIPFA recommendation for the minimum reserves. I was going to talk about 2021 and the MTFP, but as you can imagine, it's very difficult to plan currently due to the considerable impact of COVID-19, and we will need to comment on this at some date in the future. Thank you. Any questions?
No. Okay, everybody noted? Everybody in favour? Fine. Anybody against? Any right, John, capital outturn.
Okay, this is the same process, but this is for the capital programme, and basically just to the highlights, we've actually spent 74% of the capital programme, which is slightly better than was last year, but we never get to spend 100% because of the delays and so on and so forth. When you've got the sort of capital programme we've got, it's very difficult to deliver everything on time because we're reliant on third parties in a lot of cases. I mean, the council continues though to deliver. Now, this was a statement made obviously pre-COVID, so please take it as when it was presented. The council continues to deliver more capital investment than in any other year in the council's history during 2019-2020, and expenditure of £171.3 million, which represents an increase of the previous year of 39 million. Which is an increase of 30% year on year. This is, of course, I mean, say next year, what we are forecasting is we were originally forecasting to increase that significantly, but this is, of course, depending on the emerging impact of COVID-19, which is more of a slow burn when it comes to capital, rather than having the immediate impact that we will no doubt see on the revenue account. Are there any questions?
I was muted. Any questions? Anybody abstaining from noting it? Anybody against? Therefore noted, carried. John, Pauline, transfer of land to the council for Cobber Beach Park and Ride.
That's me, John.
Oh, Wayne. Hiya.
Wayne.
Yep, sorry. Are we going?
Far away.
Yeah, this is the transfer, as you said, the transfer of land for the Cobby Beach Park and Ride. This isn't to discuss the opportunity of a park and ride. That's already been done. And it's part of our 106 agreement with the landowner, and it's transferring the land over to us to create the park and ride. It's as simple as that. So that's it. Any questions?
No. Okay. Anybody against? Any abstentions? Carried then. John, small business discretionary payment.
Thank you, Chairman. On the 1st of May, the government announced that they will be providing local authorities with the additional funding to target small businesses, mainly with fixed property related costs, but are not eligible for the current grant schemes that are in place. The government want the local authority to exercise their local knowledge and discretion, and they recognise that the economic need will vary across the country. So they are setting some national criteria for the fund, but allowing local authorities to determine which cases to support within those criteria. The council now has the guidance, the final guidance, which is version 2 from the government, in order to produce the policy. But this is a discretionary scheme rather than a mandatory scheme. It will need, and as such, it needs executive approval. The government have made it clear that local authorities need to distribute the funding at the earliest opportunity. first week in June, they've actually said in their guidance. Therefore, it is deemed urgent and that the matter be considered here tonight before the executive for its approval. This will enable early distribution of the funds. There has been original guidance issued by the government, which has been superseded by a more detailed second version, and I would like the executive to note there are 3 amendments to this paper because of this. There is no right of appeal under the and we make that very clear in the document, but it does say at the bottom, page 6, the initial decision as to whether the discretionary grant will be payable will be made by the business rates team, followed by an internal discussion panel concerning of the Assistant Director for Housing, Income and Assessment and Head of Finance for those who wish to appeal. That is incorrect. In future, these grants will be decided on at the rate team level so we can get the money out quickly. The second issue is, as we may be expecting further guidance to come from central government or even additional funds, hopefully, any recommendations that I would like the Deputy Chief Executive to have delegated authority in consultation with myself to make the minor amendments to the policy as a result of any further government guidance. The third item is the version 2 guidance came in over the weekend, and it does actually say that the self-employed income support scheme, even though they've claimed on the income support scheme, can apply for a discretionary grant. So I'm proposing that we will consider application from the self-employed based on this evidence and based on the evidence and information provided via their grant application. Again, this will be reflected in WBC's discretionary grant policy. The major discretion that we seem to have seems to be around how much we award. It is only the money we're spending currently and the money the government's spending does make it only 1.1 million. But what I've decided, rather than stick to the 25,000 and the 10,000, that we will also try to help the smaller businesses such as dog groomers, people who work from home, with smaller grants. There's £3,000 to a very small business would be quite important. So I want to look at 3,000, 5,000, 10,000 and 25,000 where we think it's applicable. That means that we can make the £1 million go a lot further than we could if we stuck to the 10 and 25,000. So I'm brought it here for you tonight for you to agree. Thank you.
Let me remind you that Councillor Gregor Murray and Councillor Stuart Monroe declared a prejudicial interest in this and have centred themselves, recused themselves, so they're not here anymore. The remaining members of the executive are, I think, and therefore any questions?
I see Charlotte's got a question.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really a comment, and it's just to commend the council really for getting the money out. Sorry, to put my camera on. It's to commend the council for getting the money out so promptly to businesses already. It's a real lifeline for many who are just getting by day at the moment, and this will be an added bonus for those other businesses who haven't been able to apply for anything at the moment, but can through this discretionary grant. And I hope that they will, and I hope that we can do as much as possible to make people aware that it exists and that they can apply for it.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Thank you, Charlotte. We have distributed £16,770 as of today, I'm told.
Any other questions? No? Any abstentions? Anybody against? Noting that Gregor Murray and Stuart Monroe have recused themselves, carried in favour then. All the recommendations. Thank you. Now, just before we go, could I do something very unusual? Ulla Corinne, are you still there? Ulla Corinne, you're muted.
I'm here. Yeah. I'm here.
Would you please answer Sarah Kerr's supplementary
I
question?
will.
Sarah Kerr, are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Would you like
Okay.
your supplementary question?
Sarah, fingers crossed then. Would you like me to answer the question from the beginning, or?
No, I think we got most of it through the question.
Yeah.
It's, the supplementary, please.
What I'd really like to know, I know a lot of the answer that you're providing was around whether it is or isn't safe for children to go back. What I'd like to know is, putting that aside, for those that choose not to go back, what is the council specifically doing to help and support those families?
Well, we will continue to work with the head teachers to ensure that those children are being given a good education, although they are staying at home. So they are not going to be forgotten about. And as I said before, it's a parental choice whether they are going to send their children to school or not. And there will be no penalty if they decide to keep them at home. So I think we have to be sure that there is a good risk assessment at the school. But if parents still don't want to send their children, it is their school. There's also the school's decision whether they're going to open or not. So whether parents decide not to go, or if schools decide not to open, the council will still be working with the school to ensure that the children are receiving a good education.
Thank you, Ulrika. And is that right, Sarah?
Thank you.
And well done for your volunteering. I understand it's been valiant. Thank you, everybody, for turning. Thank you. Let me remind you that we're planning to have council meetings as usual on the calendar, virtually, so that it won't be as usual, starting virtually from the 1st of June. So thank you all. Thank you for turning up, and have a very nice evening.
Thank you.